After years of battling my cold, distant mother-in-law and dealing with the constant lies from my own mother, I reached a breaking point, one I couldn't ignore any longer. I had to stand up for myself. A few days ago, something happened that I felt compelled to share. My name is Bridget, I'm 35, and I've been married to Archie, 37, for nearly 10 years. Our love story wasn't one of grand gestures or fairy tale moments. It started in a cozy coffee house. Archie, the charming guy he is, gathered the courage to ask me out, and everything else fell into place. Looking back, I can't help but smile at how unexpected it all was. As for what we do, Archie's a smooth talker. It's no wonder he won me over. And me? I'm a graphic designer, constantly playing with colors and shapes to make things pop. Our early dating life was simple, yet perfect. There were no extravagant dates, just plenty of laughter, late-night talks, and cozy movie nights snuggled up on the couch. But here's the twist, our wedding wasn't some grand, fairy tale event either. It was rushed, unexpected, a shotgun wedding, really. It all started when I found out I was pregnant not long after we began dating. The shock hit us both hard. We were young and hadn't even thought about marriage. But life, as it often does, threw us a curveball. Faced with the reality of impending parenthood, we had to make a choice. After talking it over, we decided to go for it, marriage, a baby, all of it. Planning a wedding in a few short weeks is no joke, but somehow we pulled it together. We scrambled, invited family, and threw together a small ceremony. Despite the chaos, surrounded by loved ones, it felt right. We exchanged vows, promising to stick together through thick and thin. And you know what? No one seemed to mind the rushed wedding. Everyone was just happy for us. Our families clicked instantly, which was a huge relief. You never really know how two families will blend together, but ours? It was seamless. We swapped stories, shared laughs, and it felt like we had known each other forever. But here's where the story takes a turn. After I gave birth to our daughter, things with my mother-in-law started to cool down. At first, I thought it was just those postpartum hormones messing with my emotions. But as time passed, it didn't get any better. It was like I had become invisible to her. Whenever we were together, she barely acknowledged my existence. Conversations were practically non-existent. I tried to engage, but it was like talking to a brick wall. Awkward doesn't even begin to describe it. And it wasn't just silence that got to me. No, it was the way she made me feel as if I was constantly walking on eggshells. Everything I did seemed to be met with disapproval. Take cooking, for example. I'd spend hours in the kitchen preparing a meal, hoping to make everyone happy. And yet, no matter what I made, she'd find something wrong with it. Too salty, too bland, too spicy, pick a complaint, she had it ready. And then there were her comments on my parenting. It didn't matter what I did, whether it was how I dressed the baby or how I handled bedtime routines, nothing seemed right in her eyes. But the most crushing part? The constant comparisons to Archie's ex-girlfriends. She seemed to have a whole highlight reel of his past relationships, and she wasn't shy about reminding me how they were better than me at everything. I'd smile, nod, and try to brush it off, but inside, each remark felt like a punch to the gut. Here I was, doing my best to be a loving wife and mother, and yet it never seemed enough for her. And let's talk about her gifts. The ones that were less thoughtful presents and more passive-aggressive critiques. Like the cookbook filled with recipes I could never stand, or the parenting book that felt more like a critique of my skills than a guide to help. It got to the point where I dreaded family gatherings. Every time we got together, I knew I'd be met with her icy stares and backhanded compliments. But here's the thing, I refused to let her negativity get to me. I knew who I was. I was a good wife, a good mother, flaws and all. While her approval would have been nice, I didn't need it to know my worth. Instead, I focused on what truly mattered, my family, my happiness, and the love that Archie and I shared. Then, things took another turn when I got pregnant with our second child. Picture this, I'm pregnant, Archie and I are neck-deep in relationship problems, and to top it off, my mother-in-law's coldness is still going strong. We'd always had our disagreements. You know, the usual stuff that happens when two people try to navigate life together. It felt like we were speaking two different languages at times. I tried to express how I felt, and he'd shut down. Before we knew it, we were caught in a game of emotional charades, both of us scarred by past relationships, finding it hard to trust or communicate fully. Therapy became our lifeline. Week after week, we sat with our therapist, unpacking all the baggage we'd been carrying around. Slowly, we started to reconnect, to rebuild trust. And our finances, which had been a constant source of stress, began to improve when Archie switched jobs and got a huge raise. Things were finally looking up. But even as our relationship healed and our financial situation improved, my mother-in-law's coldness didn't waver. Even after I had the baby, she still treated me like an outsider. She'd come over, showering Archie and the kids with affection, while I was left out in the cold. Her criticism didn't stop either. Every little thing I did, from dressing the kids to folding laundry, was scrutinized. It was exhausting, trying to juggle the demands of two little ones while dealing with her constant negativity. But Archie and I did our best. We were surviving, trying to navigate the wild ride of parenthood with two kids in tow. The whirlwind of late-night feedings, endless diaper changes, and rounds of peekaboo became our new reality. But even in the madness, there were moments of sheer joy, watching our children grow, their laughter filling the house with a warmth that nothing else could match. Yet, amid the chaos, there was her, always ready to find fault in my every move. Take, for instance, the time she dropped by unannounced and caught me feeding my daughter store-bought snacks. You would have thought I had committed a grave sin the way she carried on about the importance of homemade meals. Or how about when she criticized my choice of daycare for our eldest? She insisted I should have done more research, visited more centers, endlessly going on. Never mind that I had spent weeks combing through the internet, touring daycare after daycare to find the best fit for our family. And don't even get me started on her unsolicited advice about discipline. Every tantrum, every timeout, she had something to say. It was as if she thought she knew better than me, the one who spent every day with our kids. But despite her constant interference, Archie and I held firm. We leaned on each other, drawing strength from our bond and our shared commitment. Through it all, we grew stronger, more resilient, finding our way through the storms together. Then, everything took a surprising turn at my mother-in-law's 65th birthday party. Picture it, we were all dressed up, heading to the celebration, expecting a joyful occasion. I had put so much thought into her gift. After all, selecting a present for someone who hasn't exactly been warm toward you is never easy. But still, I remained hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, this gift could be the olive branch that would help ease the tension between us. After much thought, I chose a pair of stunning diamond earrings, nearly identical to a set she'd lost years ago. I figured this would be the perfect way to show her that I cared, something thoughtful that would remind her of happier times. So, we arrived at the party, gift in hand, ready to make a peace offering and put on our best faces. At first, everything seemed to be going smoothly. People were laughing, chatting, enjoying the celebration. I handed over my carefully selected gift with a smile, hoping that this would be the breakthrough we needed to thaw the icy tension between us. For a brief moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, she liked it. But then, just as quickly, that fleeting hope disappeared. Her face remained a mask, inscrutable, leaving me to wonder if I had missed the mark once again. The party continued, with cake, candles, and all the usual festivities, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It was like a dark cloud, looming above the sunny atmosphere, casting a shadow of doubt over my attempts to bridge the gap between us. I felt the distance widening again. And then, it happened. As I was mingling, I overheard my mother-in-law talking to my sister-in-law. She was saying that I had a habit of showing off and that my gift of diamond earrings was nothing more than a flashy attempt to win her over. Her words hit me like a dagger to the heart. I had tried so hard to offer something meaningful, and she twisted it into something ugly, implying that my gesture was shallow, just a ploy for her approval. The sting was unbearable. It felt like a slap in the face. Here I was, trying to extend an olive branch, and she turned it into something bitter and malicious. It was like nothing I did would ever be good enough. The whirlwind of emotions inside me was overwhelming. But I couldn't just let it go. I had to confront her. In the kitchen, my heart was racing, my palms sweating, and I was a nervous wreck. But I couldn't just stand there, swallowing her hurtful words. I needed answers. Did she really think I was showing off? Was that how she saw me after everything? Her response? Well, it wasn't exactly comforting. She brushed off my concerns, claiming that giving her diamond earrings wasn't a smart choice, given our financial situation. As if that somehow made it all okay. But I wasn't about to let her off that easily. I pressed her. Did she truly believe I had some ulterior motive behind the gift? Did she think I was trying to buy her affection? Her surprise was palpable as she asked, "What do you mean, win me over?" And that's when things really started to go downhill. In that tense kitchen confrontation, I found the courage to lay it all out, how her constant coldness had been eating at me, how it had hurt more than she could imagine. But instead of receiving the apology or understanding I had hoped for, she dropped a bombshell. She accused me of trapping Archie. Trapping him? I was floored. What on earth was she talking about? Last time I checked, it took two people to make a relationship work. Archie was just as much a part of this whirlwind romance as I was. Trapping him? It was beyond comprehension. Desperate for answers, I demanded to know what she meant. And that's when the bombshell exploded. She said she knew the truth. Apparently, my mother, Jane, had told her something long ago. I had no idea what she was talking about. So I pressed her, hoping for clarity. That's when she spun a twisted story about our wedding, a story I never saw coming. According to her, my mother had supposedly spilled a secret about our shotgun wedding, claiming I had baby-trapped Archie into marrying me. Not once, but twice. She accused me of intentionally getting pregnant again during a rough patch in our relationship, just to ensure Archie wouldn't leave me. I was absolutely floored. It felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could my own mother, someone I trusted, have fed her such hurtful lies? And why on earth would my mother-in-law believe such nonsense? But despite the shock, I knew I had to set the record straight. I squared my shoulders, looked her in the eye, and told her, in no uncertain terms, that she was dead wrong. I explained how I never once manipulated or coerced Archie into marrying me. In fact, I never even brought up the topic of marriage after I found out I was pregnant. Archie was the one who made the decision to propose, not me. And as for the second pregnancy during a rough patch, well, that was just life. The air was thick with the weight of unresolved tension as I faced my mother-in-law. Her accusations, her unshakable conviction that I had somehow manipulated my way into my marriage, had sent my heart into a whirlwind. It was absurd, cruel even. How could she think that? How could anyone believe that I had pressured Archie into something that was supposed to be a shared decision? And yet, her words echoed in my mind, each one more damaging than the last. But I wasn't going to let it stand. My anger, my need for truth, surged within me, and I knew I had to act. Without a second thought, I called Archie into the kitchen. The moment felt monumental. Could he set things straight? Could he back me up and, in doing so, clear the murky fog of doubt she had thrown over our entire relationship? As he walked into the room, his face contorted in disbelief, I knew he was just as hurt by this as I was. His voice, firm and unwavering, rang out in that kitchen, telling her the truth I had been desperate to hear for so long, that it was always his choice. That I never manipulated him. Her face, once filled with cold suspicion, seemed to flicker for just a moment, as though she was starting to understand. A small part of me felt relief. But the sting of the years she had spent in cold silence, the tension between us, didn't vanish so easily. How could it? The damage was done. And when she finally spoke, the words that followed were a painful apology, a fragile attempt at mending what had been broken for so long. Still, as the words left her lips, I felt an unsettling sense of betrayal. How could she have believed such lies? How could she have allowed this narrative to persist without even questioning it? My own mother had fed these falsehoods to her. The betrayal felt like a sharp knife twisting inside me, and no amount of apologies would change that. How could I trust someone who had been the source of such hurt, the origin of such pain? I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in my gut. I had to confront my mother. I couldn't let this go. So, I left, sending Archie and the kids away, hopping into a cab, and heading toward my mother's place. The ride felt like an eternity, each passing minute stretching the tension in my chest tighter and tighter. What had I done to deserve this? The anger bubbled up, each thought swirling into the next, and I found myself bracing for the confrontation that awaited me. When I arrived at my mother's house, I didn't hesitate. I stormed through the front door, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she could hear it. I had to know the truth. Why had she done this? Why had she spread these lies? At first, she dismissed me, waving off my concerns like they were nothing. But I pressed on, refusing to back down, and soon the truth spilled out of her like water breaking through a dam. She had, indeed, told my mother-in-law that I had trapped Archie into marriage, that the pregnancy was the only way to make him stay. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. How could she say that? How could she believe that about me? Her twisted logic made no sense, yet there it was, hanging in the air between us. Archie was too good for me, and she believed that my marriage was a result of manipulation. The weight of it was suffocating. I stood there, trying to make sense of it all, but I couldn't. The words kept swirling in my head, over and over. She didn't even seem sorry. Didn't seem to understand the depth of the pain she had caused. It was like a slap in the face, a betrayal so deep it felt like it cut to the bone. I knew then that I had to draw a line. I told her, in no uncertain terms, that I was done. Done with the lies, done with the hurt, and done with the toxic cycle. She was my mother, but she had broken my trust in the worst possible way. I made it clear that I couldn't, no, I wouldn't, let her continue to poison my life, or the lives of my children, with her bitterness. Her reaction? Well, it wasn't one of understanding. She shouted at me, calling me all sorts of things, entitled, ungrateful, but I couldn't stay. I had said my piece. I couldn't listen to her anymore. When I got home, the weight of the day hit me all at once. I collapsed into Archie's arms, tears flowing freely as the relief of having finally spoken my truth mixed with the exhaustion of the entire ordeal. Just when I thought I might finally find some peace, my cousin called. They didn't mince words. They told me I might have been too harsh, that cutting my mother off from my kids was too much. It made me pause. Had I made the right call? The next day, after everything had unfolded, I was shocked when my mother-in-law showed up at our door with food. Her expression was sincere, her apology genuine. She admitted that she had played a role in everything, how she had spread the lies about me, and she was sorry. I was still grappling with the weight of everything when I realized something. My mother had trusted those hurtful lies about me, and it was then I realized how easily she could have avoided all this. If she'd just seen through the manipulation from the very start, maybe we wouldn't have spiraled into this mess. But then, a part of me appreciated her honesty. It took a certain kind of courage to own up to such a massive mistake. I could see it in her eyes, the genuine regret, the remorse that came from realizing the depth of her actions. It felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders, as if the fog that had clouded everything was starting to clear. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was still in pieces. "Thank you for finally seeing the truth." But even as I said those words, I knew that it would take time to process everything. Trust, after all, wasn't something that could be rebuilt in a moment. It wasn't something I could just flick on like a light switch. People often ask me about my relationship with my mother, but the truth is, there isn't much to tell. Growing up, she was always there in the most basic sense. A roof over my head, food on the table, that sort of thing. But when it came to the emotional stuff, well, let's just say she wasn't exactly the mother of the year material. I had what some might call a good enough mom. You know the type, the ones who do the bare minimum, enough to keep you alive but never really reach beyond that. It's not that I'm ungrateful. Far from it. But there's always been this emptiness, this quiet ache that something essential was missing. Maybe I didn't see it at the time, or maybe I just didn't want to. Maybe I was too naive to acknowledge the cracks in our relationship. But looking back, it's hard not to see them now, the missed birthdays, the coldness, the constant feeling of being misunderstood. I would make excuses, rationalize it, because facing the truth would have been too painful. After all, what kid wants to admit that their mother might not be everything they wished for? But as I stand here today, I know one thing, I won't let that past define me. I won't allow my relationship with her to shape who I am. I'm more than just a collection of my experiences, and I am a fighter. A survivor. And that strength will carry me forward. Then, just when I thought I could finally start to breathe, a few weeks passed, and the storm wasn't over. Oh, no! My mom's betrayal sparked a chain of events I never saw coming. My cousin, remember her, decided she had enough of all the lies. So, she marched up to my mom, right outside a church, of all places. And you know what happened? It was like something out of a drama. There were harsh words, pointing fingers, a spectacle for everyone to witness. The entire circle found out, and the scandal was impossible to ignore. I could only imagine how my mom must have felt, humiliated, exposed. But knowing her, she probably shrugged it off as if it was nothing. As for my cousin, though, It felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off her shoulders. She stood up, said what needed to be said, and finally, the truth was out. But my mother wasn't done. After the confrontation, there was no call, no apology. Instead, my phone started blowing up with angry voicemails, filled with accusations. "You ruined my life," she said, blaming me for her shame. But not once did she say sorry. Not once did she acknowledge the hurt she caused. Now, I could have caved. I could have called her back, smoothed things over like the dutiful daughter. But not this time. Not after everything. I'd had enough. So I made a decision. I was done. Done with her lies, done with her manipulation, done with the toxicity. And I wasn't going to look back. Was it hard? Yes. The hardest part was knowing that I would never have the mother-daughter relationship I always dreamed of. But sometimes, you have to prioritize your own well-being, even if it means cutting ties with family. Then, life threw me another curveball. Just when I thought I had everything figured out, a new update came crashing into my world. It was a few weeks later when the news hit like a ton of bricks. My mother had started showing signs of dementia. My heart sank. Here I was, so ready to cut her off, to leave the past behind. And suddenly, the reality of her condition stopped me dead in my tracks. She was slipping away, confused, afraid, no longer even recognizing me. I never expected to feel this way. I never imagined that the woman who had caused me so much pain would now be someone I couldn't walk away from. As her only daughter, I couldn't just abandon her. No matter what, I had to be there. It's been a hard journey. My cousin stepped in to help, staying with her, providing care. But if things get worse, we'll have to consider a nursing home. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: I can't erase the past, but I can help care for her in the present. And through all this, one thing stands out to me: hope. There's hope that she'll find peace, that we, as a family, might find healing. Maybe this is the chance for closure we've all been waiting for. To all of you who followed my story, thank you. Your words, your support, it's meant the world to me. Perhaps this new chapter will bring healing for both of us, for me and for my mom. I'm holding on to that hope.